Cricket et al. It's a website, it's a podcast.
Pete, it's a way of life. It's Gideon Haig over here.
It's Peter Lawler over here.
And welcome to Cricket et al., your independent cricket podcast, with an unusual geopolitical quotient this week. It's been an extraordinary last 7 days in international cricket and international geopolitics, and the two, of course, in South Asia frequently overlap. Just to backtrack here ever so slightly, well, this goes back to on 22 April, there was an attack on a group of tourists, Indian tourists, in Pahalgam in India-controlled Jammu and Kashmir. 26 civilians were killed. Responsibility was claimed by a group called the Resistance Front, associated with Lashkar-e-Taiba, which is a militant group in Pakistan. They then withdrew their claim, so it's an unclaimed terrorist act, although the Indian government believe the perpetrators are proxies for the Pakistani military. And the situation has escalated to the point where cricket has become involved, and extraordinary scenes last Thursday night when drone activity around Dharamshala that was apparently targeting the airbase, sort of about 80 kilometres away from the ground, causing blackouts in the surrounding areas, meant that the Punjab Kings Delhi Capitals game was curtailed. There were then reports of cruise missiles landing in Rawalpindi that resulted in the cancellation of the Pakistan Super League game between Peshawar and Karachi, and then all the activity stopped while the two governments faced off between them. It was a sense of chaos, a sense of panic, brilliantly reported by my colleague Peter Lawler on cricketetal.com. Pete, where are we up to right now? It's been an extraordinary weekend, and you've done some fantastic work bringing the scenario alive.
Yeah, I can wheel out all the cliches at this minute, Gideon, because it's a fast-moving situation that we have on our hands. Well, essentially, where we're up to is the IPL is being suspended, but it's now indicated there is now an intention to get it back on before the end of the week. Yeah. If you'd have told me a few days ago that was the intention, I would have said you are insane. But then again, I've underestimated India and Indian cricket and its ability to get things done when it wants to. The simplest tasks can seem to be the most complicated and take forever around Indian cricket. But then these big ones, they just do like that. You know, they've up to move the entire tournament in the past, haven't they? To South Africa on very short notice. Yeah, 2009, The problem here is that a lot of players have returned home, and a lot of people involved in that situation, particularly in that game up there, felt let down by their franchises and by Indian cricket. And generally, there's a level of anxiety, an understandable level of anxiety about returning to a situation in which this could happen again. There's a ceasefire at the moment, and fortunately it seems to be holding, and it would be great if the IPL and the PSL could get going and everybody could just go back to where they were. But it's not going to be that simple, and it's been a bit of a sobering experience for some of the players and support staff and people in the commentary. Just, I suppose, real life's intruded on cricket again. You don't expect to be dealing with these sorts of matters when you're playing a game of cricket. You certainly don't expect to be evacuating a stadium and in fear that maybe you're going to be struck by enemy fire, whether that was right or wrong. And you particularly don't like being placed in that situation in the first place. And the hubris of the IPL in conducting that match in those circumstances needs to be questioned, and has done it some damage. Had they not done that, I think it would have been a lot easier to have a resumption straight away. But they've lost. There's been I feel that players, and on both sides too, and in the PSL as well, feel like there has been a breach of trust, that they were placed in danger, that the continuation of the tournament and the finances around that were more important than their safety.
It's curious, isn't it? I mean,
Yeah.
as I understand it, and you're better placed to comment on this than I am, that the franchises actually facilitated the departure of most of those overseas players who wanted to leave, overseas players and coaches. Most of them left on Saturday. Some haven't even got to their final destination yet, and yet now it seems the franchises are recalling those. So, in hindsight, was it premature of them to leave, or does simply the right hand not know what the left hand is doing?
Wow. It was chaos, and I guess the players just wanted to leave and got out. And some players actually didn't wait for the franchises to arrange anything. Right. They arranged their own flights. They were going home.
Yep.
But you ended up the cliche, the fast-moving situation. You end up with those players up in Dharamshala being put on a bus at 10 in the morning, then put on a train and going to Delhi, going to the airport. And I understand that, I haven't had it confirmed, that while they were on the plane, on the tarmac, news came through that there had been a ceasefire negotiated. Things had moved that quickly. And that led to Ponting and some of the players who'd been up there getting off the plane saying, okay, we're staying. I mean, there would have been some pressure on the coaches to set an example in that situation. I note that Hussey and Langer had already, as far as the Australians, had already returned home, but they've been called back. I don't know whether they're both going back yet. I know that a number of the players won't go back.
Just to flag later in the program.
I don't know how they could have foreseen the situation settling down so quickly. If you're involved in that situation on Thursday night and the chaos around it, it's pretty hard to take a deep breath and look above the smoke and go, oh, well, we'll be right again on Tuesday. Let's keep going.
Just to flag later in the podcast, we will be joined by two people who've actually been there, who were present amid the chaos. Our two friends, Higo and Pez from the Grade Cricketer, will be stopping by to give us a vivid first-hand account of what things were like on the ground at the time and their own impressions of the implications for Pakistan and India. What are the implications actually for Pakistan and India as destinations for cricket, do you think, Pete? I mean, I guess the IPL will continue to be a magnet given the coercive powers that the BCCI have arrogated to themselves. The PSL, I'm less sure. The money and the prestige isn't as good, because there are players who are confused about the situation in Pakistan as well as in India.
Yeah. Well, I think you've answered your own question to a degree.
Yeah.
We have a tendency to run to the, imagine the worst possible outcomes in this situation. And there's a suggestion that the BCCI stepped in and stopped the PSL continuing in the UAE because the PSL had been lighter on its feet in the initial stages after this than the IPL and BCCI had been. That seems like a malignant act. That seems like an aggressive act from the cricket administration in this country, where they tended to have been a little more benign, I guess you'd say, in the past. They just let Pakistan do what they want. If the ceasefire holds, there should be no implications for international teams, and players returning to Pakistan or India, should there? Is that what you're asking? But does it, I suppose, what are the consequences if you now partake in the PSL? Will there be ongoing consequences in terms of your relationship with the IPL? I mean, we'd asked that question before.
We did, yeah.
Thursday night's events, hadn't we?
And I don't think that's...
I think it's a great point you make about the money. Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
There's so much money involved in the Indian side.
There's so much still to play out here. It is interesting that it's been, India and Pakistan, of course, have been sort of incapable of playing any bilateral cricket they haven't played a test series since 2006, have they? And but it is interesting that it should be Kashmir that as an issue that should cause particular upset and instability. I mean, I think two of the three wars...
That's the only issue that exists between the two countries in reality.
At the moment,
it's the ongoing issue.
Yeah. And I think the other thing that's probably changed is, both parties have nuclear weapons now. And, of course, India under Modi has kind of begun to mirror Pakistan's religious nationalism. So sort of muscular military confrontation plays well in that populist political atmosphere. You know, it sort of serves everyone's purposes, doesn't it? It enhances the army's popularity in Pakistan and the Hindu triumphalism of the BJP. And the other thing is that we're coming to terms with this new sort of generation of military technology, which we've seen in Ukraine and Gaza, which escalates the confrontation very quickly. You know, cruise missiles and weaponized drones can strike deep into each other's country's territory without risking the lives of pilots. So, you know, that's, I think, what originally caused the disturbance in Dharamshala was drone activity. Which is very hard to limit, very hard to curtail, and very unpredictable. And you know, it's not something that we've had to worry about before.
Well, it's been a sobering experience for a number of the players involved, and some are adamant they will not return.
Right.
They're angry about what they were subjected to, and they can afford to say, you know, not doing that anymore.
Can they? I don't know. I mean, you know, it looks like the attitude of the franchises. The attitude of the franchises where the auction is concerned is very much, it's our way or the highway. You're either in or you're out permanently.
Yeah, and I think that there's been a sense of that from the very start of this tournament, and I suppose you've seen sort of more. A muscular imposition of that power in the new rules around the auction and entering the auction and not being available and pulling out and all those sorts of things. I suppose I'm referring to some places can say, well, look, it's just not worth the hassle. It's not, you know, pay me millions, but I just don't want to do that. But
well, if you're Pat Cummins, do you go back?
Position. Yeah.
If you're Pat Cummins, do you go back? Your team's out of contention. No. You should probably be preparing to bowl in the WTC final. You've got 3 games, 3 dead rubbers to go. I think Pat is back in Australia. What sort of choices face him?
Yeah, well, it's a sensible option for Pat not to go back, isn't it? So it would send a very strong signal if he did. You know, and both sides are interested in sending strong signals by getting their competition back on and saying, you know, look at how strong we are. Look at how focused we are. We're just getting back on we dust ourselves down and get on with the cricket.
And of course,
it highlights the importance of the IPL in Indian life and political life as well as just social life.
And the opposite side of the same coin is that it gives some players the opportunity to further endear themselves to their owners and to the Indian public by staying behind. I think I was reading this morning that only 2 Titans players, Jos Buttler and Gerald Coetzee, have left the country, but the rest of them have stayed. Franchises are trying to bring Coetzee and Buttler back, but guys like Rashid Khan, Glenn Phillips, Shirfan Rutherford, they're still there. And, of course, Ricky Ponting is still there.
And being lauded as a hero for remaining.
Voracious on the bridge. So, and his assistant coaches, Brad Haddon and James Hopes have stayed behind.
Right. And I think so has Xavier Bartlett and Aaron Hardy.
Yes,
but I'm getting it's confusing trying to work out who's where. I mean, I have to go through my messages, you know, over and over again to find out where people are and what they're doing. People were flying all over the place. So in a lot of conversations with the people in a lot of airports on Friday. People without tickets, people thinking they were going there and then ended up going there. And it was a pretty long trip home. And look, and a shock. It's a sort of it's a disappointing situation to say the least, isn't it? You know, we really do not want cricket doesn't need India and Pakistan to be fighting like this. It has really significant implications for cricket.
Yeah. Yes, it does. We'll discuss some of those implications with Higo and Pez after the jump.
Yeah. But, it's such a big story, Gids. That
it's a huge story. It's such a huge story.
Such a huge story that
that, we've had Rohit Sharma giving Test cricket away before Test cricket gave him away.
Yeah.
And we've also had Virat Kohli now reported to be wanting to retire over the objections of the BCCI. So it looks like we saw Virat's last Test match in Sydney without even knowing it. And I think I've also read this morning that apparently Jasprit Bumrah has pulled himself out of the running to be India's Test captain, which now leaves probably Shubman Gill or maybe Rishabh Pant as a potential candidate to succeed Rohit. Now, we've been discussing this.
Rishabh Pant, captain of India, has not been watching the IPL. Just quietly. He's had a mare.
But we would be discussing this uphill and down dale, were circumstances different. But I guess even the Indian captaincy is overshadowed by potential nuclear confrontation.
Yeah. So beginning with the first of those events is Rohit says, "Okay, that's it. I'm gone." I think they just announced a contract list. He was up the top of the contract list, but at the same time, the people around him and the team had been given the flag. So the writing was on the wall.
Yes. Yeah.
But explain to me this. How can you want to retire and not be allowed to retire? Yeah. What sort of a contract does Virat Kohli have with Indian cricket?
Yeah. Well, I guess the assumption is that he has a kind of a moral contract that his importance to the side, the guarantor of his experience for a team that's just about to go to England is something that the BCCI don't want to undertake without him. And I guess he also punches a huge hole in the cricket economy. It's a little bit like the cricket economy after Tendulkar retired.
Yeah,
he was so sort of fundamental to the economic mechanism of Indian cricket that it was just as well that Kohli came along when he did to kind of replace him. There's no obvious replacement for either of those two players in the current Indian setup. There's no one remotely of the same stature. Only Bumrah comes close, and it seems like it's a huge ask for him to captain in 5 Test match series as well as bear the chief burden of the bowling. And they're coming to terms with the fact that he's not inexhaustible, and when he's not available, unpredictably, like he was in the Sydney Test, that leaves a huge hole below the waterline.
It's similar in some ways to the situation Ricky Ponting was in his final years after stepping down from the captaincy, where his experience was needed in the dressing room. But I think that's something that Ricky recognised, and that's something that I guess the BCCI are saying here. We need your experience in the dressing room in England. But what a burden to place on a guy like Virat. You have to feel for him. I mean, we saw how much he gave of himself when he was out here in Australia, and had that initial success in Perth, but it wasn't very good after that, and his behaviour became more and more frantic. But he kept giving of himself, on the field, but he couldn't give of himself with the bat, and that's got to be a terrible situation for a champion to be in. You take so much pride in your own performance that to only have what you give the team. I mean, you're in there as the club mascot to a degree, aren't you?
I think Kohli must feel very strongly about this, because part of him would want a proper farewell, a farewell on his own terms, in much the same way as that farewell opportunity was extended and extensively contrived for Tendulkar.
Yeah,
Kohli really must feel like he has nothing else to give at Test level. And I think you'd be a fool to kind of stand in his way. I think Kohli has a very intimate understanding of where his game is at. He monitors it obsessively. It's a fascinating kind of standoff between Kohli and the BCCI. There are reports that a senior figure has been asked to make representations to him. Not quite sure who that figure would be. Maybe MS Dhoni, maybe Rajiv Shukla. But I think he's never had an easy mind to change, Kohli, once he's made a decision.
It'd be an interesting study to sit down and talk about Sharma and Kohli and the way it's ended, and what they both brought to the equation, because it was so very different. Kohli created that new, Team India spirit thing, didn't he? Well, he didn't create it. At least he built on it, as most Indian cricketers do. Sharma felt like a little bit more of a John Howard type, relaxed and comfortable candidate. He steered them in another direction. But the fact that if one of the two has to go, they choose Sharma, who's the current captain, tells you a little bit more, I think, about the value of Kohli. I mean, there's no doubting it, is he? A Kohli is such an incredible commodity to have in a cricket team. Gives so much. I really enjoyed your piece on Rohit. He's been a great cricketer to watch over the journey, hasn't he?
Yes.
Very, very different energy to his predecessor.
An amazingly level cricketer, wasn't he?
Yeah.
He had that sort of sang-froid about him. Although I think towards the end, as form closed in on him, he averaged 11, I think, over the last year in Test cricket. You could begin to see his game and his attitudes fray. I remember him when that catch went down in Melbourne, and he responded so assertively, so with such distress and irritation. That was not like the Sharma that I remember. So in some respects, it's a little bit surprising that he didn't announce it maybe immediately after the Test series. Maybe he thought, I need to take a step back and not to make an impetuous decision based on emotion. And in the end, of course, I think it was the BCCI, who conveyed to him that he no longer had their confidence, or that they wanted to make a change.
Is it fair to say that Test cricket in India isn't where it should be right now? That team's performances haven't really lived up to expectation, or that team, that Indian cricket monolith that we have in our mind about how good they are and how good they will continue to be because of the resources.
How good they are at home. How good they are at home. How unassailable they are at home. The New Zealand series really I think will lead to some soul searching in India, because they had worked on that formula of preparing rank turners and basically mincing every competitor who came over to them, playing 2.5-day Test matches, and then the tables were turned on them, and people were forced to confront the idea that it was actually helping overseas teams. Certainly helped New Zealand. Certainly evened up the competition between the two sides. And the question is, what do you do now?
Hasn't helped anyone in the Indian top 6.
No, it hasn't.
For the last 10 years.
No.
It's a terrible thing to be a batter over there. But the performances haven't been great. I mean, to your mind, who's favourite when India play away now? They've got 5. Is it 5 tests coming up against England?
And in fact, if you look at Rohit's Test captaincy record, I think it's 12-9, isn't it? It's not outstanding. His white ball record's astonishing as a leader. India's been virtually unassailable at one-day cricket, apart from the misstep during the T20. 2023 World Cup, but they have been a dominant side in the white ball stakes, and of course to a great degree, Virat and Rohit playing Test cricket made Test cricket important, didn't it? The fact that they showed such respect to the format, that they showed that it was something they wanted to continue going on playing, they wanted to continue to excel in it.
Great point.
What does it mean to the generation coming after them? I guess once Jadeja retires, he's kind of the last of that great group, because we lost Ashwin in Australia last summer. Bumrah perhaps to some degree the same. Shami looks as though he's fallen out of calculations. He probably won't make the England tour now, because he's looked like cannon fodder in the IPL so far. So.
He looked like cannon fodder in the IPL, so you don't get a run in Test series.
No,
He's pretty fucking good bowler, mate.
Everyone at some time or other looks like cannon fodder. Yeah. But it's they kind of kicked the can down the road, didn't they, for a long time by maintaining that core of senior players, and it looked a little bit like 2011-12 towards the back end of last summer, didn't it? The team that had gone on one tour too many.
Yeah, certainly
you know,
did.
in some
Yeah.
respects, the tour of England is the first step in the new generation. So, not surprising in some respects that they want kind of Kohli to provide a sense of continuity. But at some point, he's got to finish. He's got to finish, whether it's tomorrow